Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Browns at work out in Berea, and plenty of news off the field as well. 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk holding in, and the 49ers now engaged in trade talks. Matt Mayako, 49ers beat reporter, with the latest on the Aiyuk trade talks. This is from KNBR Radio.
The 49ers have trades in place, the frameworks of trades in place with New England and with Cleveland. And then Aiyuk and his representation have basically contract proposals in hand from both of those teams. And now the ball is squarely in Brandon Aiyuk's court to determine which one of those two, or neither of those two, that he ultimately decides that he wants to accept. Just to reiterate, the ball right now is solidly in Aiyuk's court. He can either choose the Patriots, he can choose the Browns, or he can choose nothing and just see what develops with him and the 49ers.
Late this afternoon, the Steelers have re-engaged the 49ers as well in the Aiyuk talks. Let's welcome in Jared Mueller from Dawgs by Nature. Jared, again, it's kind of in flux. The interesting part is, so you have to satisfy the trade demands of the 49ers. Steelers have not done that yet. That's why they're kind of on the periphery, still going back and forth. Patriots and Browns have. You also have to satisfy Aiyuk's contract demands. And apparently the Patriots and the Browns have not yet done that.
Well, it's an interesting leverage play by Aiyuk. The Niners made it really clear, we're not trading you. And then he held in. And then all of a sudden, there's more conversations that started about 2 weeks ago, or maybe just a little bit longer than that now. And so it's not just his contract demands. He has the leverage to want to go where he wants to go. First on his list was Washington. They basically have said, hey, we're not going down that route. Second on his list became the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so it's really interesting that he's decided the Steelers is where he wants to go. And for now, it seems like he's using that leverage to try to get them back engaged in a conversation. But then will the Niners accept whatever Pittsburgh's willing to offer? And it doesn't seem like they're really that close at this point in time. It's not like Pittsburgh to trade a lot for an offensive player, and it's not like Pittsburgh to spend a lot of money signing an offensive player. Doing both seems really unlike that franchise. So it seems like it's really all about Aiyuk trying to get where he wants to go. And it doesn't seem like so far the Niners and Steelers are really anywhere close to each other.
All right, so we'll continue to talk about this. Jeff Darlington, Mike Greenberg, Dominique Foxworth on the trade compensation piece that would be going to San Francisco. This is from ESPN's Get Up.
We are hearing that Amari Cooper of the Browns would potentially be involved in the trade with the 49ers should this wind up going down.
Fascinating. And again, that would make sense because you're the 49ers. You're on the doorstep of being a champion. You had the lead in overtime in the Super Bowl last year. So you're not looking to take a step backward. So it would make sense that they would want a good player to step into that. And very quickly, for those who don't know the history, the reason that the Commanders feel significant, once upon a time, Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels were teammates at Arizona State, and they remain very good friends. Okay, Dominique, first blush, first reaction.
Well, this feels like, honestly, an inevitable outcome because Brandon Aiyuk's advanced statistics suggest he's amongst the best in the league, but his production does not. So that tells me that the 49ers offense is not fully utilizing him, and we understand the type of players that it seems the Shanahan system, or at least the San Francisco version of the Shanahan system, prioritize. It's the versatile players, guys who can play running back and receiver like Debo and McCaffrey, guys like Kittle, who's a great blocker and a great receiver. Brandon Aiyuk is a traditional great X-receiver. Someone else is going to pay him top of the league money to be that type of player.
And here's something else to keep in mind, Jared. Jack Duffin, Orange and Brown Report tweets this out. Amari Cooper at 30.1 years old, Aiyuk 26.3. So you're buying 4 more years of the prime of a wide receiver one's career by making that trade if it in fact involves Amari Cooper. It makes sense from the Browns' standpoint when you look at it that way.
It does, absolutely. I think there's been some assumptions that Cooper will be involved in the trade, But the new contract they gave him and guaranteeing some of the money and already paying some of the money makes that a little bit less likely. At this point, I've been told the Niners are not requiring a wide receiver in return. It just seems to be such a clean, easy fit. But why wouldn't they just keep Aiyuk? Because Cooper is going to be a free agent at the end of the year as well, right? So then it decides kind of what is that other compensation to go along with Cooper. And for the Browns, like Jack's tweet said, what are they paying for that extra 4 years, right? Is it Cooper and a second round pick? Or is someone like Wyatt Teller, who's got 2 years left on his contract, one of the best guards in the league, for an offensive line that really is Trent Williams and no one else good? Is that maybe a better fit for that kind of main piece in the trade, along with whatever might go along, right? Was that Elijah Moore and Wyatt Teller, Cedric Tillman, draft pick? What does that look like? But in the end, for the Browns, it makes a lot of sense. The advanced metrics, as Dominique talked about, say that he is one of the top receivers in the league. He's just not what San Francisco kind of uses on a kind of regular basis. So a lot more explosive than Amari Cooper, maybe a little bit lower of a floor, maybe not as productive play in and play out, but it's going to be more explosive, bigger plays, and obviously 4 years younger.
Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor this as we go. But let's move on a little bit. You wrote an article, and I've been trying to figure this out, and we'll be piecing this together throughout the preseason and up until we see a couple regular season games. New offense. What do you think it looks like? And I know you wrote an article about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're going to see from the new offense, and this is going to be a little bit of a callback from a couple of years ago, is exactly what Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. wanted. It's a more flexible offense that is not based on timing and rhythm. The base of Kevin Stefanski's offense has been, at least, kind of in that West Coast system, has been when you get to your back foot, you go 1, 2, 3, you get the ball out to that guy or that guy. And really, I think what we're going to see is a little bit more of a spread out system that allows Deshaun Watson to kind of look through his options, find the biggest play first, and then kind of work his way backwards. And so a little bit more of that flexibility, a little bit more of the creativity, a little less of quick passes, get it out of the hand, unless, and this is kind of where Stefanski can marry it a little bit, unless it's a run pass option. Any run pass option has to be a quick throw because the offensive line is blocking it like a run play. And so you'll either see run pass option quick throws, or you're going to see Watson hold the ball and try to make something happen, not just with his feet, but really to allow plays to kind of expand, let the defense expand, and kind of find the holes in the coverage. So it'll look different in that way, as well as a lot less two tight ends, right? So Jordan Akins is really the only other tight end on the roster outside of David Njoku. You're not going to see them on the field as much. And I would be shocked if we see many, if any, offensive linemen in as a tight end in those formations either.
See a lot of shotgun, do you figure, as well? Significantly more
Absolutely.
shotgun?
Deshaun really likes to be able to see everything. Turning your back to the field really doesn't open up the possibilities of watching and seeing everything. But again, that goes along with the difference between a timing offense, which is not about what the defense is really doing. It's about what the offense is doing, to this where the offense is really trying to dictate based on what the defense is doing so that it can make as big of plays as possible.
So another one that you wrote, and I've been saying this, Nick Chubb has a lot of incentives to try to be ready for week one. Take us through your thought process with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very simple thing with the contract. He got renegotiated this offseason. He had no guaranteed money. So the Browns really had most of the power with him coming off those 2 knee injuries. But as they were negotiating, basically he's got $6 million, I believe is the number, somewhere in that range, that if he is not on the roster week one and not playing, basically all of those incentives go away. And so if you are his agent, you're not negotiating that type of incentive-based program if you don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to be available week one. Instead, you're going to negotiate those incentives more into games played and some of the other kinds of things, maybe even averages, some of that kind of stuff. So it seems not only is there a lot of incentive for him to be ready in week one, but it seems like he and his agents when they kind of made that contract, had a belief he would be ready and able to kind of meet some of those incentives.
All right, before we go to break, Mary Kay Cabot tweeting this out relative to the health of Zadarius Smith. So Smith still just a knee contusion after further tests Tuesday morning. He'll be fine with some rest per league sources. That is great news. Browns also added defensive end Marcus Haynes for some depth. He was on practice squad last year. So getting some depth pieces because you're going to need guys to take snaps in the preseason games. First one coming up Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we don't expect to see Myles Garrett. Now Zadarius Smith is going to sit out. Listen, as we get a little older, I know, Dave, you age gracefully, but, that bone bruise is probably going to last right through those 3 preseason games, right? Like maybe a little bit of practice time. But, Zadarius is 32 years old. Don't expect to see him in a preseason game. Not sure we're going to see Myles. So, yeah, adding Marcus Haynes, who was on the Broncos practice squad last year out of Old Dominion. You need some depth. You need some players who can take some snaps. Game is on Saturday. Makes sense to me.
Jared Mueller from Dawgs by Nature and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear a little bit from Quentin Jefferson, Sports4CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toast, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the lettuce, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions of prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Jared Mueller from Dawgs by Nature. Quentin Jefferson, new defensive tackle, talked to the media today, talked about helping the younger defensive tackles become pros, as well as what he's seen from second-round pick Michael Hall Jr.
Super knowledgeable, it's like a sponge, try to soak everything up, man. The sky's the limit for him. It's just about just getting his opportunity, which we'll have this weekend and onward. I'm super excited for him, and yeah, he's gonna be a special player.
Are those young guys coming to you first, or are you kind of reaching out to them, inviting them to practice with you?
It's kind of a mutual thing. Like I was gonna do this stuff regardless, and then they're just interested, like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, come see. And it's kind of thing now that, yeah, like they already know after practice, and even me and Chris, we get our hands in, we ground, we do a little extra conditioning. It's like I said, it's just, you got to just do a little something because everybody's coming out here doing just the practice. So it's like, all right, what else? You got to put a little extra in. And like I said, they're actually taking the initiative. They're seeing what I'm doing and inquisitive, and I'm just like, hey, just come on, follow me.
What are some of the big questions these young guys have for you?
Probably the biggest thing is just how do you sustain playing like 9 years at like a high level, and I was just like I said, explain just you gotta have a routine because that creates consistency. Because you see a lot of guys like a flash in the pan, might have one good year and then kind of fizzle out. So it's like, how do you create that? It's like just doing the same things every single day, and it's almost like second nature.
Jared, I know you wrote an article about Michael Hall, and the veterans seem to love him already.
Yeah, he's someone who brings something different to this defense. I mean, he's someone who could unlock. Now, yesterday we heard the comparison to Aaron Donald, which is unfair to a second-round pick rookie. He is a little bit undersized, but he's nowhere near Aaron Donald coming out of college. But he's someone who gets really, really quick pressure, and I think that's something that the interior of the Browns defense, Jefferson is another guy who can get some pressure on the interior. That's something they didn't have last year. And so we saw what that defensive line was like without a lot of pressure up the middle. Add Hall, add Jefferson. It's really a dynamic that I think could be really game-changing for what Jim Schwartz likes to do. He doesn't really love blitzing even as much as he did last year. And so I think this year you might see a little less blitzing because they really have more guys who can get pressure. They can rotate those guys. It'll be interesting because the defensive tackle room is really 6 deep with people that historically should make the roster. It'll be interesting what that looks like, barring injury, when we get to that kind of final cut down day.
Yeah, so Jefferson also talked about what he wants to see from himself, as well as how good he thinks this defense can be.
I mean, there's so much talent. There's talent everywhere, and I mean, I don't want to speak too soon because, again, we still have to put the work in. We still have to go out there and play those games. We still got a long camp to go. And, I mean, I'll say this definitely, if not the most talented roster I've been a part of, but we still got to go take it day by day and do the work to become that.
Quick one, Jim Schwartz has a reputation for elevating defensive tackles to even greater things. So what is the next greater thing for you? You come off a pretty good year.
I mean, do better because my year got cut short last year, tore my groin, so I only played, 13 games. So to do better than that, I want to get 10 sacks. I know I have the 10 sack abilities. I want to be a 10 sack guy, and so I want to go do that. And this is the defensive scheme to do it. Schwartz, I mean, he loves defensive linemen, always puts us in position to make plays. We always have an aggressive mindset. I mean, use my skill set, which is my athleticism. So, I mean, I'm excited for the opportunities.
Jared, it's kind of interesting. If you put Quentin Jefferson with the type of ends the Browns have, I don't think he's played with as many really good defensive ends as he's going to play with this year.
I don't think so either. And also, I think it's missed with some people just how large Jefferson is. And when you do kind of that wide-eyed scheme, having kind of the bigger, longer defensive tackles can be really, really helpful. But Jefferson standing next to Myles Garrett really kind of puts it in perspective. And I think it'll be interesting to see, again, how do you rotate all of those players, but also let them feel like they're getting the rhythm of the game, because you do have a lot of guys now on that defensive line, because we've seen Zadarius Smith, we've seen Myles Garrett, we've seen Alex Wright all move into that kind of 5-3 technique on the inside. So it'll be interesting this year, how much that rotation works, and how many, is it a thing where everybody's getting in a little bit, but maybe no one is getting those huge numbers outside of Garrett. But it is a really exciting group that hopefully will make the cornerbacks, the linebackers' jobs easier.
So we mentioned first preseason game against the Packers Saturday, and word comes out today that Jameis Winston will get the start at quarterback against the Packers. They'll decide on Deshaun Watson playing in the preseason as camp goes on. That's certainly not a surprise. Also, from the Packers side of things, Matt LaFleur says Jordan Love will play in the preseason opener at Cleveland Saturday. Most starters will play. Only the ones that are kind of banged up will not get to go. So an interesting dynamic, and it's not surprising. Kevin Stefanski has historically not played a lot of the starters' first preseason game.
No, and it's one of those things where we kind of get confirmation bias on the back end. So if the Packers get out to a good start week 1, 2, and 3, well, it's because they played their starters. If someone gets injured, though, all of a sudden he shouldn't have played his starters, right? And so, the Browns have Dallas in week 1, a really difficult game, or should be, as long as they have all their players. So, yeah, they've always been on the side of caution, right? Is we can get a lot of rhythm through practice, through the scrimmage and the practices with the Minnesota Vikings. So, it's something that's not going to be a surprise. I think they'll get Watson out there in game 2 just to get him a few reps of live action, but just a completely different way of kind of going about business between the Packers and the Browns.
Yeah, and there isn't a right and a wrong. And neither one's right, neither one's wrong. It's just the way you decide to do it. This is kind of interesting. It's from Dog Pound Daily. 5 Browns to watch in the first preseason game against the Packers. Number 1, Miles Harden, rookie cornerback. Number 2, they go Siaka Ika. Number 3, Halese, the young cornerback as well. 4, Jamari Thrash, and 5, one of the undrafted rookie free agents, Javion Cohn. Who are you anxious to see play?
This is, honestly, we ranked the 90 players in order, which was a really fun process over at Dogs by Nature. And it's really fun to just see how deep the team is. Linebacker Bookie Watson, drafted this year, really an interesting player, could be really interesting on special teams. I really like the list that they put out. Cohen's going to be an interesting guy. He's someone that, as the draft process went on, most people thought would be a 3rd or a 4th round pick, ended up going undrafted. Jamari Thrash is someone that a lot of teams thought would be more of a 3rd round pick as well. So those are some really, I think they've really hit the nail on the head. Siaki Ika is someone who I've talked about since they drafted him. It never made sense. Jim Schwartz told him, "You're no longer a dump truck, you're a Ferrari." Ika's really good at being a dump truck. He is much better at kind of clogging the lanes. Having him penetrate really isn't his strength. So it'll be interesting. And again, talking back to the defensive tackle room, has he really kind of adjusted his game and his body to be more of a penetrator, the kind of the Ferrari, or is Schwartz using him a little differently, allowing him to be more of that, again, the dump truck, the kind of hold the point of attack player? Is that something they even value at this point in time, or is he someone who, as we kind of go through the process, is on that trade market just 1 year into his career?
Yeah, I'm curious to see Michael Hall. I want to see Michael Hall Jr. Again, I don't expect to see a lot of reps from him. I want to see exactly how quick he gets off, with the snap of the football.
No, I think that's a great call. I think the other thing will be really interesting to see is how does he deal with kind of that late second blocker? So he blows past the center, but as he's doing it, the right or left guard kind of comes over and chips him. Is he able to keep his feet? Is he able to kind of counter off of that and still make plays? Or is he kind of getting tossed around in those kind of scenarios? And then when he has to, is he able to anchor? I think that's a really good challenge for him against Green Bay, who likes to run the ball, likes to kind of get the defensive lineman moving. How does he do with that? Does he over pursue, or is he able to kind of hold his keys as he's supposed to?
Jared Mueller from Dawgs by Nature and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jared Mueller from Dawgs by Nature. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, I'm calling from Rochester, New York. I just saw the 12-5. Really? With that schedule we have to play this year, I will be lucky we win 5 games. I heard of a thing that people were talking. Last year we were a snake in the grass and snuck up on people. This year, I think they're saying we're a Ferrari. You guys are saying we're Super Bowl ready. Only problem is, guy, we've got square wheels, and the square wheels is our coach. I don't think we're going anywhere with that. I hope we do, but I doubt it. Okay, guys, take care.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jared, that would be one of our callers from Rochester, and I would recommend Kevin Stefanski not run for mayor of Rochester. That's just some advice. I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with that. 12 wins will be a little tough. I think anybody winning 12 games in this division will be a little bit tough. 5 games is ridiculous. They won 11 with 4 different quarterbacks. And you can say what you want about Joe Flacco. They would have won 11 games, maybe more, with Deshaun Watson.
And I think that's just the reality with Stefanski is if you don't think he's a good coach, you're not going to think he's a good coach, right? The NFL has twice said he's the best coach. He did the best job with 5 different starting quarterbacks last year because, we got to count the Bengals game at the end that didn't count. He won 11 games. And so I think the reality is, and I looked this up just because I was interested, 21 head coaches have won the Super Bowl. 21 in the entire Super Bowl era. There have only been 21. It feels like no matter what, if people have decided Kevin Stefanski's not a good head coach, they've decided Kevin Stefanski's not a good head coach no matter what actually happens. There's just enough proof that he's a really good head coach. He keeps locker rooms together through a lot of different things. His play calling is actually really, really good. But if you nitpick any play caller, they make mistakes at times or plays don't work out. But the reality is we can only judge that kind of on the back end. Because if it works out, then we're excited, and that's a great risk and all of that. the reality is it's a really tough schedule. It's really backloaded, which I think seems like it's backloaded because of the late season hard knocks that they wanted all of the AFC North teams playing each other so they could have video of all that. The reality is it's a tough schedule. It should be a tough schedule. And they still have to deal with Patrick Mahomes when they make the playoffs, if they make the playoffs. Anything more than making the playoffs and winning a game or so is a good season at this point in time. I've compared Patrick Mahomes to Michael Jordan. Those Cavs teams were great. Unfortunately, so was Charles Barkley, Karl Malone. All those guys just wasn't enough. And so, again, if you don't like Stefanski, you don't think he's a good coach, probably unless he wins a Super Bowl, you're never going to think he's a good head coach.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I know you wrote an article about Stefanski, and his win total could very well elevate him to past Marty Schottenheimer. I covered Marty Schottenheimer, and they fired him out after a playoff loss. So, I mean, the expectations are getting back to where you want them to be when you're a good team. When you're a good team, you expect to make the playoffs. You expect to win playoff games. And I think the Browns are there. Remember, these guys, Barry and Stefanski, took over 131 or whatever the heck it was. But back to your article, Stefanski's in some pretty elite company with this franchise.
He is, and it's really telling that basically by the end of this year or next year, he's basically going to be behind, I don't know, Paul Brown and Blanton Collier. That's about who he is going to be behind. And this year, he's going to pass Marty. He's going to pass Bill Belichick for total games coached for the franchise, right? And so we talk about the Browns as a historic franchise, and we're about to talk about Kevin Stefanski as second or third on the list of games coached and won in this franchise's history. There is some part of that is a little sad, given how many coaches the team has gone through since the return in 1999, but it's also really telling that a really trigger-happy owner in Jimmy Haslam has settled down because of Andrew Berry, because of Kevin Stefanski, because of Paul DePodesta, and has really trusted them. And now Stefanski's on his way to really that really lofty kind of timeline and kind of place in Cleveland history. It's not something most people would have expected from a guy who really didn't have a lot of coordinator experience before the Browns hired him.
And Blanton Collier was the head coach of the last championship team when the Browns won in '64. Paul Brown won before they were in the NFL. So those are championship head coaches. Those are going to be likely the only two ahead of Kevin Stefanski here in the next couple of years. All right, let's. You wrote an article as well about the long-term home of the Browns. So the future of where the team plays remains up in the air. Last week, City of Cleveland released its $461 million offer to renovate Cleveland Browns Stadium. According to a report in April, and it's kind of being updated as we go, Browns ownership with the state of Ohio want a domed stadium in Brook Park, and it will. They've released some renderings. It comes with a report that the decision is in the works. It's $3.6 billion. It will have complexes around it that, hotels and entertainment districts and the like. Jared, this is a topic that's kind of interesting. Go back to when the Browns left and when they came back. Everybody was all excited, but there were things that were shortcut. The roster being put together. Everybody else had 2 years. The Browns had basically a year. It led to things that weren't good. The stadium rebuild was shortcut. That leads to things that aren't built. There's a thing in business. The mistakes you make on the front end of a project take decades to overcome. So, and listen, you mentioned Jimmy Haslam. He had a quick trigger with coaches. But all he's done is spend money on keeping this roster among the elite. If he wants a domed stadium, my guess is it's so he can generate more revenue, so he can dump more revenue into this franchise. So he hasn't done anything that has been, well, it's good enough. I mean, they just renovated the facility in Berea because he wants it to be top of the line. Why would he settle for an outdated stadium on game day that is, good enough, but is got less lifespan than if you go and you build a dome and it's elite? Can you answer that?
It's kind of, yeah. I mean, you don't know. Like, it almost feels, I don't know why it popped in my head, but it almost feels like the Aiyuk Cooper conversation, right? Why go for the newer, maybe more expensive? Let's just stick with the known, even though it's aging and all of that. And let's pay for that, right? The Browns literally built both their roster and their stadium on poor foundations, right? They wanted to compete right away. They wanted to get back at the Ravens and Art Modell and all of that kind of stuff, and literally just wanted to use the same structure, the same foundation, the same sewage system from the old Brown Stadium so that they could get that going quickly and all of that. And so in the end, putting more money into a stadium that weather and all of that is probably got 10 to 20 years, even if they put $1 billion into it, has 15 to 20 years before it'll need $2 to $3 to $4 billion. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And Cleveland taxpayers would foot half of that bill. The Brook Park, and I'm not going to pretend to be a financial expert, the Brook Park deal, the 3.6, 2 point, some of that is going for just the stadium, would be a lot of revenue directly from what's happening in the stadium, the parking around the stadium, new revenue, not trying to pull old revenue or find new revenue to pay for it. And it would give an opportunity for hotels, WrestleMania, Final Fours, all of that. In the end, I think what I've heard from Browns fans is twofold. Who's paying for it? Sounds like Jimmy Haslam's willing to pay more for a dome and something in Brook Park, right? Buying the land, paying a larger portion of a larger total price. And the other thing has been the dome versus open air. But this is an organization. I'm not going to use the word paranoid. I'm going to use the word likes to be in control. And I think one of the things about a dome stadium, it allows the organization to be in control. They don't have to worry about 10-degree weather with sideways rain all of a sudden screwing over a roster that they're paying huge money for. So in the end, this is where it was all going to go. I think once it all works itself out, fans will be happy, the bottom line will be happy, Jimmy Haslam will be happy, and I think it will, in the end, put the Browns in the best situation to compete.
Yeah, and again, nothing he has done, being Jimmy Haslam as the owner, has been, it's good enough. Even the crazy moves that he made with coaches, I believe they were all aimed at, hey, we got to find a way to win. We got to find a way to win. We got to find a way to win. So why wouldn't you expect him and welcome the fact that he wants an elite facility that is his home for this franchise?
And just to be honest, it gives the city of Cleveland an opportunity to develop an area that hasn't been developed, right? And so it could actually be better for the city. You're paying less for the stadium, more services, and now you have a downtown area and a lakefront area that you can develop into something, whatever that something is, that could draw people in a different way, right? It's not 7 home games, 8 home games, maybe a playoff game, maybe 1 or 2 concerts. It could draw people more often as long as it's developed correctly. And so let's get rid of those old foundations. Let's start new and see what we can do in all of these areas.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, Cincinnati developed the riverfront. Detroit has developed the lakefront. San Antonio is built on a riverfront. There are ways to do it. I mean, and it generates more revenue for the city of Cleveland than the 8 dates that the Browns would. So I'm with you.
And it'll be a cool looking stadium.
Jared Mueller, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jared.
Absolutely, always, Dave. Good to see you.
Jared Mueller, make sure you check him out. Dawgs by Nature, always insightful stuff regarding the Browns. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jacob Roach from Browns Wire and the Barking Browns podcast straight ahead. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toast, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch, find the letters, make a match, lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30, yo. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions in prizes, don't you know?
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I just recently saw a report about the 49ers having the framework in place to either trade Brandon Aiyuk to the Browns or the Patriots. You know, to be honest, I'm actually torn about this because there's only one reason why, and it's because of Amari Cooper. I mean, on one hand, it's exciting to be able to acquire a young, talented wide receiver, but on the other hand, I would hate to lose Cooper. I mean, he literally is the wide receiver version of Nick Chubb, which is a rare breed in today's NFL. But in Andrew Berry, I trust. And if he thinks that Brandon Aiyuk will be the missing piece for us to get over the hump, then so be it. At the end of the day, I'm just a fan, and I'm a Browns fan through and through. So whoever wears our helmet and our uniform, I will root and support for. I just hope that Aiyuk wants to come here and is excited to be here and continues to ascend and help us win that elusive Super Bowl ring. Thanks. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com as well as the Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, I'm with Rico relative to Amari Cooper being the Nick Chubb. Right now, it seems like Aiyuk's preferred destination might be Pittsburgh, and that's the reason for the holdup.
Yeah, it kind of almost feels like a little bit that they're kind of using maybe the Browns as leverage a little bit there, maybe even the Patriots as well, because let the Steelers know, yeah, maybe Aiyuk does prefer to be there, but right now, whatever they're offering isn't acceptable, and they said the framework is there for the Browns and for the Patriots, so they're able at least to have come to an agreement with the team if they can get Aiyuk potentially to agree to the contract extension. So that's what I would say the holdup is, because he's got all the leverage at this point, and if he's not going to re-sign with someone, they're not going to trade for him, and the 49ers are not going to give away an all-pro wide receiver for nothing. So we're kind of in that little tug-of-war period right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if this saga wraps up in the next couple of days. I don't think it'll drag on one way or another. Rather, that's him re-signing and staying in San Fran or going to Cleveland or even Pittsburgh or wherever. I think that it'll take a little bit, but I don't think it'll really drag too much longer.
Well, this is from Cody Suick, so this is interesting as well. This is Aiyuk's advanced metrics, which is why he is sought after. It's among qualifying receivers for 2023. EPA per target, 0.63, that's first. Positive play percentage, over 69%. That's first. On-target catch percentage, over 97%. That's first. Receiving grade, 92.3 is second. 3.0 yards per route run is third. And the important distinction is Aiyuk does that in an offense that runs a lot more than it throws. So he could do more damage in a throwing offense.
Yeah, Aiyuk had over 1,300 yards last year on just 75 receptions, and he played for the team that threw the ball the least across the league. Like, when you start looking at those metrics and the overall accumulation of stats, and you're like, he's not getting 200 targets, like they're not throwing the ball 35, 40 times. They want to play through the run and throw the ball when they have to. And I think with Brandon Aiyuk, the thing, you talk about the on-catch percentage, the overall receiving grade, that sort of thing. It's if you give him a chance to make a play on the football, he's going to make that play on the football. He's going to complete his part of that process. If it's to catch a ball, he's going to catch it. And what Aiyuk does after the catch is really what gets me excited. You can go back to when they played the Browns. There late in that game when the Browns were trying to, up 19-17, trying to, going back and forth. There was a couple of plays where Aiyuk took small slants and turned them into 20, 30-yard plays, and you started getting really nervous because you just got to get that man the ball once or twice, and all of a sudden you may be down the field. He is that guy. He's an all-pro caliber receiver in a run-first scheme. If you put him somewhere where they're going to throw first, his numbers will reflect that. I think he's top 5 at that position, and I just think he's just got everything you want in a wide receiver, and just don't forget, he's 26.
So this is from 33rdteam.com. That's former personnel guys, NFL executive types. Grading the recent contracts. Amari Cooper's contract, they grade the Browns an A, Cooper a B-. Agreed to a restructured deal that adds $5 million in incentives and guarantees $20 million base this year, with half of that sum paid in a signing bonus. Helped Browns' salary cap situation by lowering Cooper's number from $23.776 to $12 million. Cooper's pay still falls short of top receivers, led by Jefferson's $35 million. Cooper can become a free agent next March. Andrew Berry did say an extension is possible. The only thing you would have liked is if there was another year or so added onto it. And the reason they may not have done that is they wanted to see the landscape that you're looking at right now with Brandon Aiyuk. That might be the reason it was just a one-year deal at present.
Yeah, I think that, Andrew Berry tries to plan for all options and all things out there. We know that if there's a player available that could help the Browns, he'll kick the tires. And it's been pretty obvious for a while that something's going to happen with Aiyuk, and that whether he gets traded or not, the opportunity to potentially trade for him was, I think, always on the table, has been for a while. I think you see the situation with T. Higgins. Like there's a lot of options at wide receiver going into the 2025 offseason and that sort of thing, where they just, want to keep all those options open. And I agree that the only thing that from Cooper's standpoint, that could have been done to bump it up to an A is if he had added a year or two. So I think that's a pretty fair thing where the Browns are able to move some money around, take care of their guy, pay him for what he's doing, but also giving them flexibility to be like, hey, maybe we'll get Aiyuk, maybe we won't, maybe we don't get any of these guys and Amari Cooper just goes off, and in October we give him a 2-year contract extension. I think that the Cooper contract structure and the change, that's just exactly the antithesis of what Andrew Berry does with these contracts and what he does with running this front office. And it's just keep all options on the table and explore them until they're no longer options, and then move on from there.
Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading, If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com and the Barking Browns podcast. Defensive tackle, Quentin Jefferson, his impressions of this Browns defense as a newcomer.
Man, they get after it. I feel like we're always attacking. Like I said, and just the plays are the plays, but really it's just like, man, there's some special guys on that defense who want to be great. And I just love that, and it excites me, gets me energized, and like I said, I just want to be a part of that, And yeah, we have a special group, definitely a special group.
How curious are you to see what that D-line looks like when everybody's healthy, right? You get Dalvin back and Shelby's here, all those guys together.
Definitely interested because I know we all kind of played together. I played with Shelby in Seattle, so I already know what type of player he is, but. No, I said it's going to be great to get everybody together, out there working together, because, again, you got to feel how guys rush. That's a big aspect, just playing with guys, just seeing what they do, because you kind of can play off them, even see how guys play the run, because you got to be able to fit off guys, play off guys. So it's definitely going to be critical, like I said, when we get some days on the field all together that, like I said, just got to make them count, before the live bullet.
Jacob, it's kind of interesting. You hear the new guys, Hicks we've heard now from Jeff. There's a mold that the Browns look for when they bring veterans in, and you can kind of hear it in what you're hearing from Quentin Jefferson.
Yeah, and it continues to just show where this organization has gone under this leadership, where guys didn't say things like this. You had Zadarius Smith earlier talking about Michael Hall and comparing him to Aaron Donald, not saying he's that guy, but saying, hey, this is a special talent that can kind of reach those sorts of heights if he takes advantage of everything that's in front of him. And you just, like you said, Jordan Hicks came in, he said a bunch of this stuff last week. Quentin Jefferson talked about it this week. And, they asked him about Myles Garrett. Everybody, of course, says the same things. He was built in a lab. I don't know if he's human. He does these crazy things. But it's just you see that they have set the foundation of this roster. They've got young players, but they brought in savvy veterans that have been around a lot of football, guys that know what good and bad football looks like, and guys that are just flat out excited to come to Cleveland, be a part of what they've got going on. And I just think that this defense – you've kind of tweaked a little things here and there with the person. I think that this personnel-wise, top to bottom, I think this defense should be better than it was last year. Now, they did some historic things at times that, they might not be able to do statistically this year. But this is a really good group that I think got even better. And I'm with Quentin Jefferson 100%. This defensive line, if it's healthy and it plays up to its potential, it should be the best in the NFL.
Yeah, year two under a new coordinator should make that leap as well. So this is from Yardbarker. 3 important decisions Browns must make before the regular season. Number 1, who will lead the backfield if Nick Chubb isn't ready? Number 2, who will be Deshaun Watson's backup? And number 3, is the inside linebacker room good enough? Number 2, it's going to be Jameis Winston. It's going to be Deshaun. We don't need to talk about that one. What about Nick Chubb? If he's not ready to go, what are your thoughts on the running back core?
You got to start with Jerome Ford. I think he showed you that he can be kind of that number one guy. You don't want to necessarily give him 25 to 30 carries, but somewhere in the range of 15 to 18 as the lead back. And then, if Foreman is healthy and it sounds like he's going to be okay, they're just going to take things slow with him after that scare last week. And I think if Hines gets healthy, that those two can be role players and situational guys where Ford gets most of the workload. He can do the run, he can run, and he can catch out of the backfield. He can do a little bit of everything there. So I think you kind of lean on him for 15, 18 carries, somewhere around in that range, kind of as the lead back. But those short yardage situations, here comes Foreman. Those third down pass catching situations, here comes Hines. But yeah, I think you lean pretty heavily on Jerome Ford if Nick Chubb's not out there. And then when the situation arises for those other guys, you go to them as well.
Linebacking core, I know a lot's made of it. I really like Jordan Hicks rather. I'm interested to see Watson, Boogie Watson, what he looks like.
Yeah, I like Watson a ton, especially as a pass rusher. Like, yeah, we've talked about this a bunch of times, I know, but like, this is a dude that led the SEC in sacks at a linebacker position, and I think he's kind of flying under the radar. And I understand it. He was a day 3 pick. He's not, a premium, top 100 pick with a lot of hype around him. He's been in college for. There's some deficiencies in his game, but I think Hicks and JOK, those dudes are set. You're solid. You're top 2 are there. I think Devin Bush has looked pretty good to start training camp, and that's a former top 10 pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And usually if you're a first-round pick defensively for the Steelers, there's a reason. It hasn't really panned up to what his draft status all the time, but he's shown some flashes, had a good camp. You add in Watson, I think he can do some really nice things, especially from the pass rush and coverage standpoint. Would like to see him a little bit stronger at the point of attack against the run game, but I think he's got some good situational ability in there, and maybe even Mamu Diabate, probably another guy that can rush the passer and stuff. So I don't think, if you have an injury in the inside linebacker room, I don't think it's a strength, so to speak, especially if you've got to go to the depth, but I don't think it's a glaring weakness that'll hold this team back. I think it is, in fact, good, borderline above average.
So the other thing we find out from Mary Kay Cabot is that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who has been banged up, returned to practice as well, and Sam Kamara, who Jim Schwartz talked about, is back after leaving the field yesterday with the trainer. So again, guys kind of getting healthy, and it's the typical bumps and bruises and banged up during training camp.
And you know this, Dave, this organization, this front office, they like to play these things very safe. They don't like to, they don't want things to compound on them, and if a guy's a little bit banged up, let's just go ahead and sit down for a couple of days. We're not going to worry about it. It's still the beginning of August, and I think they just continue to play this safe. It's great to see JOK back out there. We also heard that Mary Kay did confirm that Zadarius Smith is just a knee contusion, so just a bone bruise there on his knee, so nothing major there. They'll probably shut him down like they did JOK for a little while. So right now you feel pretty good. Yeah, you got to take those lumps in training camp, after being off for several months. But as of right now, you're seeing some guys just need some rest, coming in and out of the lineup. Nothing major, knock on wood. But I think you feel pretty good right now where you are health-wise if you're the Browns.
Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com and the Barking Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue talking Browns sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toast, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30, yo. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions in prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. This is from the Bleacher Report. One undrafted free agent with best chance of making each NFL roster. For the Browns, they go offensive lineman Javion Cone. Browns might have found a young project to fill out the depth chart after the draft in Javion Cone. 6'4", 322 pounds. Got starting experience at Alabama before transferring to Miami ahead of the 2023 season. Cone doesn't have the easiest path to a roster spot, especially after the Browns drafted Zach Zinter. Has tools to impress coaching staff in training camp. Yeah, Jacob, it's kind of interesting. A lot of people thought he was going to be a 4th, 5th round pick, and he goes undrafted.
That's where I had him. I had a 5th-round grade on him. I mean, this was a guy that I mocked to the Browns on day 3 of the draft several times. There was a ton of smoke. They visited with him multiple times. So there was a ton of smoke between the Browns and him. And then, of course, they end up obviously signing him as the UDFA. But I think this becomes interesting because now you lose Brian Allen, the backup center. He went on injured reserve and they released him with an injury settlement. And that kind of makes you lean towards having Luke Whippler more focused on being the backup center than the guard, and it might open something up for Cohen. I mean, I look at the guy, he is a very good pass protector. Like, I think he is he's technically sound as a pass protector. I would like a little bit better movement skills at times, especially in the run game. He needs to work on some of those things, but he could be kind of that guy that just kind of sneaks on as the 10th offensive lineman, or they stash on the practice squad to bring him along because his run game stuff just needs work. But he's played football in the SEC. He's played for Miami. I mean, he's got a lot of high-level football experience. And I think that he's like me and Casey Kinnaman talk about this. He's kind of the mirror, kind of the reversed image where Zach Zinner is a really fantastic run blocker, needs some work on the pass. You kind of flip that with Cohen. I'm really not sure why he goes undrafted. But, if you got a guy that you feel that you can develop, and I think that's what he is, I think he definitely has a pass in his roster, especially after the injury to Brian Allen.
So, first preseason game Saturday against the Packers. What are you paying attention to with the Browns in this first preseason game?
I'm really looking at a couple of the young wide receivers. Those are the guys I'm kind of focused on. I'm really excited. I think it could be a big jump forward year for Cedric Tillman. So I'd love to see how he was used. Is his route, does he have a more diverse route tree? Is he running some more option routes? It looks like he's in the right place at the right time. Him and Jamari Thrash and David Bell, because I think, David Bell's kind of fighting for that roster spot. And I think these young wide receivers, where are they now versus where they were when 2023 ended? And I'm very excited, especially about Tillman and Thrash. But, I think there's a lot of guys that are battling at that position. And I just kind of want to see where's the jump? Who's going to be the standout star? Matt Landers made some plays in training camp practices. Can he translate that to the preseason field? And they're going to play, Green Bay is going to play some of their starters on defense. So it'll be interesting if those young wide receivers get reps against their starting defense and what they look like. But the young wide receiver core, that's where I'll be watching this weekend.
Do you think we see more of this new offense, or is it something that Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey keep it under wraps? How much do you expect them to show of what this offense is really going to look like? We know Jameis Winston will be the quarterback. Deshaun Watson won't play.
Yeah, I think I kind of look back at what they did last preseason, because they had changed some things and they were trying to incorporate some of that run game action stuff with Elijah Moore. So I think you'll see mostly kind of what they normally run. I don't think they'll show too much, but you might get like 20%, 25% of what they want to do, maybe a very low number. But some of these choice routes and option routes and things like that in the passing game, they do need reps. They need repetition. They got to get as many reps in as they can. That's the only way they're going to kind of learn with those, especially with the young guys. So I think you'll see a few wrinkles here and there, but I wouldn't expect it to really be anywhere near kind of the what they're going to show. They'll show a little bit more each week, I think. But I do think that, some of the shotgun stuff, I think you see a lot more shotgun, because I think that's what they're going to do this year. So I think we'll get more work with the shotgun run game, especially. But I would say if you're trying to say 20% max. But I just think some of those harder, minute details that you need to work out with some more repetition, you might see some of that stuff.
Who do you think needs to play well? Who is fighting and kind of on that roster bubble that needs a showing in preseason to kind of find their way on to the 53?
I kind of look at the back end of that defensive tackle room. I think that battle between Siaki Ika and Maurice Hurst is going to be really interesting. And I think, Ika, they've talked about Ika dropping some weight and transforming his body and being ready to take a lead. Well, he's going to go up against a pretty decent Packers offensive line. Potentially, we don't know if it'll be a second when he'll get in there, but him and Maurice Hurst are kind of on that bubble of the last guys there. And I think, Maurice Hurst has really got to step up, because I think he's kind of the underdog here. I think he's a better player than Ika, but Ika has a different type of game, and they already have, guys that can do what Maurice Hurst does. So I think he really is the guy that really needs to step up the most on that side of the ball. And I'm very excited to see if he can do that.
Jacob Roach, BrownsWire.com and the Barking Browns podcast. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. You can read him on BrownsWire.com. He is also the co-host of the Barking Browns podcast. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.